housing is something all of us need. And so this isn't a new thing for us to think about, but in Central Ohio, we're growing. And so our region's expected to be about 3 million people by 2050. And we've been growing a little bit faster over the last few decades, and housing hasn't been keeping up. And what this means is as we're growing, there's more competition for housing that people can afford. So it's driving prices up, and it means that especially for folks in the middle and lower ends of what you can afford for housing, there just aren't enough choices. There aren't enough options to go around, and it's causing a lot of stress in the community. So we had over 24 different community partners, local governments, businesses come together and say, we got to look at this, because what we're worried about is as we grow, it's only going to get worse unless we do something today and unless we plan for something today. So that was the whole gist of doing a study right now.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I had a friend, if you're in a certain price range, those houses go so fast. As soon as they hit the market, they don't even get a chance to see them. And then there's multiple bids. Prices
So
people
true,
out.
very true. Yeah, all over the region.
What do you think was the need for affordable housing? Was it overlooked in the past, or is it just the growth that we're experiencing? What has, I guess, caused this issue of a lack of affordable housing?
Oh, there's a lot of different factors, but there's a couple that really stand out. And the one is our region hasn't been building enough housing. And so we think just to keep up with the growth, you need somewhere between about 11 and 14,000 new homes a year in Central Ohio. That's a lot. And we haven't been building enough. And part of the reason is the cost of construction is higher. Because we're a growing region, labor costs are more expensive, construction costs are more expensive. So developers are going to build the housing product that they can afford, that they can at least break even on. And so when you look at some of the lower cost housing options, the middle cost housing options, they're not even affordable for developers to build them. And so you start to see this compounding effect where there's just not enough homes. And the other thing is too, our population is changing too. So there's different types of homes that we need than maybe we hadn't needed before. We need more homes for people in their golden years. We need more homes for young adults who are moving to Columbus or choosing to start their careers in Columbus. And we just don't have enough of those options. And this is all kind of compounded together.
So you're saying we need more starter homes, and then for homes where people in their golden years want to downsize, maybe get a ranch, something like that.
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it is think about your own family. So you know, when you're starting off, you need one type of housing. If you decide to have kids, you need another type. As you age, you might need something if you've got a disability at some point. So if you think about, well, I grew up in Westerville. If I wanted to raise a family in Westerville, when those kids were ready to leave, are there options for them? When I retire and I might need something different, I might need more help, do I have options to stay in the community that I've spent my life in? And so when people first hear that we need all this housing, they start thinking, well, who are all these other people? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, those people is us, if you will. There are children, there are parents, they're the people that we love who need different choices and options. And really, at the heart of it, it's just, we want to make sure the region's got enough housing so people have choices that not only can they afford, but that meet the life needs that they have at that time.
And is it up to you guys, MORPC, and the organizations you work with to kind of figure out what type of housing people will need, and to, I guess, get that areas for that type of housing to be built?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So there's two ways we look at this. We look at what's the population and what are their needs. And one of the things we noticed in this study is there is a lot of housing needs that are unmet. So not just the homes needing to be built, but how much people are spending on housing. And so just a stat for you. So in our region, we have over 200,000 households who are spending more than 30% of their take-home pay on housing. So more than 30% of every paycheck goes to housing. That's about the metric that we say is affordable or not affordable. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But when you dig a little deeper, households that make less than $50,000 a year, 64% of them are spending more than 30% of their income. That means for the vast majority of people who are making $50,000 or less, we don't have housing that they can afford. So they have to make those tough choices. Well, we need a roof over our head, so maybe I spend less on the things that we need, education or food or transportation. So there's a big thing that we know, there's a big unmet gap in housing. And the other thing that's been really impacting this too is when we look at all around the region and where housing can be. One of the things the study that was really neat is it's not a one size fit all approach. You have to look at the whole region and see what different parts need. So the types of housing you might want in Reynoldsburg are going to be different than that in Victorian Village, than in Marysville. And so the study, instead of just treating everybody the same, it looked at people where they are and communities where they are. So we looked at what we call submarkets. So over a dozen different types in the region. And then we said, all right, these type of areas are missing this kind of middle housing stock. And while this other one, they need a little more on the lower end. This one needs a little higher end. So we've been able to really look and see what different parts of the region need. It's not up to us at MORPC to decide where the housing goes, but we work with local communities to help them know what their population needs and then give them some policies they can do to maybe make that happen.
And then do you have builders that come in when there is land available? How do they figure out who's going to build what, where?
Yeah, so this information is going to be really useful for builders to even, I mean, a lot of them already know what they're doing, but this really helps kind of lay out the gaps in the housing market. But the bigger thing they're concerned about is the time and cost it takes to build housing. And so people know what red tape is. It's the rules and regulations. Some of them are very important, but others, they slow down a process to build a house. And so what our group looked at was something we call green tape, which is how can we help developers and communities and even individuals who want to build a home build good homes faster. So if you think about it, if it increases your cost 10, 20% and your timeline by a year, it's hard to build a house. So we need to speed that up so that good homes can come on the market faster. And that's really a big thing that's holding us back.
Yeah, interesting. Are there any, I guess, policies that a city can enact to address the lack of affordable housing? Is there anything cities can do?
Yeah, so at MORPC, we love our studies and we have all sorts of tools. And this one in particular, we have over 100 different strategies for cities to look at.
Okay.
But the ones that really stand out, we really think there's a need to look at what we call rental assistance. So many of our programs, they're aimed towards helping people stay in their homes, home ownership. But we have 43% of our renters in the region are stressed in their housing costs. And helping them stay in their homes has so many other benefits. It helps stabilize their work life, their family life. It makes everything easier if you can afford the home that you're living in at a good price. And so rental assistance is one way to do that, just to give people that extra assurance to stay in there. And it also helps us to avoid evictions. And this is another thing we have a lot of local governments leading on. Central Ohio has evictions about twice the rate of a normal community in the country. We have different policies that can help make evictions either not necessary or help to ease the impact they have on people. And I'd be remiss to say this impacts low income and African American populations much worse, almost double the amount of evictions in some of these groups. And so when we're thinking about policies, those are our most vulnerable neighbors. We need to look at policies that can help kind of solve those problems and keep them in their homes.
Why do you think our area has a higher rate of eviction? Is it just that rental prices in a lot of places, if you want a nice place, they're really expensive. A lot of times your rent is more than what, if you were able to buy a home, what your mortgage would be.
Yeah, and it comes down, there's a whole host of factors, but you hit it on the head. It's are there affordable options? And, people need a place to live. And so they do everything to stay in that place. And if they have to spend more than they should or more than they can afford, that means if anything goes wrong, if you get laid off, if something happens in your family with medical expenses, you can't pay your rent. And the way our system is structured, it really makes it hard when people hit normal things that happen in lives. If you can't afford the housing, the next thing that's on the list is eviction. And so in a market like this, we really have to help keep people in their homes, help avoid those evictions, and help try to stabilize them so they can deal with all the other stuff life deals with.